What? Not so fucking tough now, are you?
Spunk lifted you. Ah, you remembered it. I told you.
Welcome back to Ronny Recap. Today, we're breaking down the gritty 2016 Western thriller, Hell or High Water. Fair warning, major spoilers ahead, so buckle up and enjoy the ride. The film opens on a quiet, still morning in a small Texas town. The silence is broken as a female bank employee arrives to open up for the day at a branch of the Texas Midland Bank. Out of nowhere, she is suddenly ambushed and cornered by two masked men who have been waiting for her in the shadows. Because the bank has only just opened its doors, there is absolutely no cash available in the teller counters yet. Even though the robbers are heavily armed and pointing guns at her, the employee shows surprisingly little fear because she can immediately sense that these two are completely inexperienced amateurs.
All you're guilty of right now is being stupid. Just leave and that's all it'll be.
She calmly informs them that all the money is locked away inside the main vault and that only her manager holds the combinations to open it. Realizing they have no other choice, the two criminals decide to sit tight and wait for his arrival. The moment the bank manager arrives and steps through the front door, the two robbers immediately spring into action, catching him off guard, pinning him down, and demanding compliance at gunpoint. After securing the cash, the two thieves manage to escape in their getaway car. They are revealed to be brothers: Tanner Howard, the volatile older brother, and Toby Howard, the more calculated younger brother. Tanner has been out of prison for just over a year and now views a life of crime as his regular profession, whereas Toby has managed to keep a completely clean criminal record up to this point. As they speed away to evade any police response, Toby angrily berates Tanner for needlessly attacking the bank manager. Despite the tension between them, they quickly shift focus to their next move and plan to rob yet another branch of the Texas Midland Bank. Inside this second bank branch, a female teller is seen talking politely to an elderly customer. The old man is explaining that he recently cleared out his house and found a large stash of old, historical coins. Just as the teller is explaining that some of these vintage coins could actually be worth a significant amount of money, the two brothers burst through the front doors and loudly announce that they are robbing the place. Tanner points his weapon directly at the teller, aggressively ordering her to empty every single dollar from the counter drawers, though they ultimately manage to secure only a small amount of cash from them. They turn to the elderly man and sternly ask if he is carrying a concealed firearm. When the old man confirms that he is indeed armed, Toby carefully disarms him but simply places the weapon on a nearby counter right next to him, showing no desire to harm him. Once they are satisfied with what little money they have managed to gather, the brothers make a run for the exit. However, the elderly customer takes back his gun and chases them out into the street, recklessly firing multiple shots in their direction. The two brothers manage to escape unharmed once again. In light of their close call, Tanner recklessly proposes robbing yet another bank right away to make up for the low payout, but Toby firmly puts his foot down and fiercely objects to the dangerous idea. Shortly after, they arrive back at their family ranch. Working quickly to hide the evidence, they use a backhoe to bury their entire getaway vehicle deep into the dirt. News of the string of consecutive bank robberies quickly reaches Marcus Hamilton, a veteran Texas Ranger, and his partner, Alberto Parker. Because of Marcus's advanced age, his mandatory retirement date is rapidly approaching. However, this fresh case gives him a welcome opportunity to delay his departure and stay out in the field just a little bit longer. Alberto is a bit younger than Marcus and is of mixed Mexican and Native American descent, which frequently makes him the target of Marcus's teasing, good-natured racial jests. The FBI officially hands the robbery case over to the jurisdiction of the Texas Rangers. They do this because the Texas Midland Bank operates strictly within state lines, and furthermore, the thieves have only stolen a few $1,000s so far, making it too small for federal priority. Meanwhile, back at the property, Tanner complains about the rundown, dilapidated state of the family ranch. Toby defends himself, explaining that while Tanner was locked away in prison, he was left entirely on his own to take care of their severely ill mother. It has only been a week since their mother passed away. While staring into her old, empty bedroom and looking at the bed where she drew her last breath, Tanner expresses deep regret for not being there during her final moments, wishing he could have helped ease her suffering. This grief and hardship are exactly why the brothers have united. Tanner agreed to help Toby rob these specific banks as a desperate response to the crushing poverty that has plagued their family for years. Tanner asks about their mother's final will and testament, wondering if she left his name on the documents. Toby tells him that it doesn't matter anymore, because the entire ranch is already legally set to be transferred into the names of Toby's sons by next Friday. Tanner admits he always knew their mother resented him. He notes that her hatred only grew after he killed their abusive, alcoholic father, an act of defense that ultimately cost Tanner 10 years of his life behind bars. With the emotional conversation over, the brothers decide it is time to keep moving. They pack up and head out toward another town, this time driving a completely different vehicle. Meanwhile, Marcus and Alberto arrive at the first targeted bank to investigate. There, they discover that the security cameras were completely non-functional because the system was in the middle of being upgraded. Marcus finds very little physical evidence or identifying clues left behind by the thieves. When Alberto suggests that the robbers are just a couple of desperate tweakers hunting for their next fix, Marcus disagrees, pointing out how careful they've been to avoid getting caught. When they interview the female bank employee, they learn that the suspects are highly likely to be locals, judging specifically by the tone of their skin and the distinct local accent in their voices. It does not take long for the Rangers to discover that the second bank robbery followed the exact same pattern, right down to the security cameras conveniently being out of order. Marcus begins to suspect that these robbers are incredibly patient, methodical, and operating on a strict plan. He deduces that, because they are only taking small amounts of cash from the drawers each time, they will continue to strike other branches until they successfully accumulate the exact total amount they need. Meanwhile, over a meal at a local diner, the brothers find themselves in another deep conversation about their personal lives. It is revealed that Toby has not seen his own children in over a year due to a bitter separation from his ex-wife.
You want a little advice?
No, I don't.
Tanner strongly advises his younger brother to go visit his kids the very next day, but Toby somberly mentions that he cannot face them because he owes a massive amount of back payments in child support. Upon hearing this, Tanner spots a small bank right across the street. He makes a quick excuse that he needs to use the restroom and instructs Toby to wait for him outside in the car. As soon as Tanner steps out, a waitress approaches Toby at the table and strikes up a conversation. He reveals that he used to work a good job at a local mine before he was abruptly laid off. It becomes clear that the waitress has a romantic interest in Toby, even going so far as to offer him a job lead at the restaurant before writing her phone number down on the table for him. Toby recognizes her kind intentions, but he has no desire to drag an innocent woman into his chaotic and dangerous life. Instead of keeping the number, he simply leaves her an incredibly generous $200 tip on the table. Meanwhile, Tanner walks into the quiet bank across the street and immediately pulls his gun on the loan teller, aggressively demanding that she clean out every single drawer. When Toby walks out of the diner, he is shocked to see his brother frantically running out of the bank after pulling an unplanned heist. They rush into the car and speed away from the scene as fast as possible. Tanner jokingly laughs that they now have more than enough cash to cover the child support payments. Toby, however, is absolutely furious, shouting that robbing random banks was never part of their strict plan to only target the Midland Bank. Toby bitterly confesses that he regrets asking for Tanner's help in the first place, noting that this reckless detour means they will now have to go through the trouble of disposing of yet another vehicle. Meanwhile, as Marcus and Alberto are driving back to their headquarters, they receive an emergency radio call regarding the sudden bank robbery Tanner just committed. Recognizing the pattern, they pull a U-turn and head straight to the scene. Once the brothers make it safely back to their hideout, they immediately bury their second getaway vehicle deep in the ground, switch over to a fresh car, and hit the road once again. During the drive, Alberto reiterates his theory that the suspects must be tweakers, but Marcus remains entirely unconvinced. He points out how clean and efficient their execution has been, firmly believing they are following a highly specific master plan. The conversation then shifts to what Marcus's life will look like once he forces himself into retirement. He openly admits that he has no idea how to simply exist or pass the time anymore, especially after the devastating loss of his late wife. As they continue down the highway, they notice a massive wildfire burning wildly in the distance. They pull over briefly and watch as local cowboys frantically drive a large herd of cattle across the road to save the livestock from the advancing flames. Meanwhile, the brothers stop by the remote trailer house where Tanner used to live. Inside, Toby notices his own cowboy hat that Tanner had taken from him a long time ago. Tanner decides he wants to pack up and bring his personal stash of firearms along, but Toby strongly objects to bringing more heat. Tanner explains that he cannot leave his weapons hidden in the trailer for too long, knowing the police will eventually trace things back to him. When the two rangers finally arrive at the diner bank, they question the young teller on duty. They learn that only one man actually entered the building to commit the robbery, while an accomplice waited outside in a vehicle parked near the restaurant. They also discover that this particular bank actually had its CCTV cameras working and captured the entire crime on film. Marcus orders Alberto to stay behind and review the footage, while he heads over to the diner to question potential witnesses. Inside the diner, Marcus speaks with a group of local men who claim to have witnessed the two suspects during the getaway. He manages to gather a few details about their physical descriptions, and the men note that the two suspects behaved remarkably like brothers. Marcus then sits down to question the waitress and discovers that one of the suspects left her an incredibly generous $200 tip. Recognizing it as stolen cash, Marcus requests to confiscate the money as official evidence. The waitress angrily refuses to hand it over, fiercely stating that he will need a legal warrant to take her money. She adds that she desperately needs that cash to pay off her mounting debts and to buy food for her child. When Alberto walks in to meet him, Marcus instructs his partner to book them a room at a local motel, strongly suspecting that the clever thieves will strike another branch nearby very soon. Meanwhile, as they continue their long drive, the brothers talk about Toby's children. Toby quietly voices his deepest hope that his sons will grow up to be nothing like the two of them. They pull into a remote gas station to refuel. While Toby goes inside the convenience store to buy some drinks, a car carrying two aggressive young men pulls up to the pumps. The driver of the car becomes instantly enraged by the calm, unblinking stare of Tanner, who is sitting quietly in the passenger seat. The driver pulls out a handgun and steps out of his car, attempting to intimidate Tanner. Toby steps out of the store and immediately jumps into action, brutally beating the aggressive driver to the ground. Toby tries to attack the other man too, but Tanner quickly stops him, so he just throws the gun aside and heads back to the car before they drive off. When night falls, the two brothers travel to an Indian casino located across the state line to launder their stolen cash. They enter the venue and immediately purchase a massive amount of high-value casino chips. Tanner takes a portion of the chips and joins a high-stakes poker table to blend in, while Toby sits quietly at the bar, nursing a drink next to the rest of their chips. Before long, a seductive woman approaches Toby, attempting to flirt with him and openly inviting him back to her room. Tanner plays a highly successful game of poker, but his aggressive demeanor leads to a tense, verbal confrontation with another player at the table. Tanner abruptly decides to cash out and stands up to leave, but the disgruntled player steps forward to block his path. Despite the thick tension, the two men simply trade a few more sharp words and the situation diffuses without turning into a physical fight. Tanner then quickly walks over to Toby's side after noticing the woman's clear attempts to get close to his brother and his money.
But you saw the stack of chips in here. Easy mark?
No.
What were you gonna do? Mind if I sample the goods? Real quick. Hands off.
You're crazy!
Call me.
Have you managed to stay out of prison for a year?
It's been difficult.
Ultimately, the brothers safely cash out all of their casino chips for clean, untraceable checks. Toby immediately deposits the bulk of these legal funds directly into a bank account held at the Texas Midland Bank itself. Afterward, they rent a local motel room to get some rest for the night. Tanner wastes no time flirting with the female desk clerk.
Good Lord, look at you. We would be obliged if you'd provide accommodations that we failed to call ahead.
Boy, you are trouble.
He then takes her into their room, where the two proceed to engage in what sounds like a loud, chaotic wrestling match on the bed, while Toby tries his best to block out the noise in uncomfortable silence. At the exact same time, Marcus and Alberto are seen relaxing in their own motel room, watching television. Marcus continues to relentlessly tease Alberto about his heritage, prompting Alberto to finally fire back with sharp jokes, mocking Marcus's old age and his impending retirement. Marcus simply smiles, explaining that these constant jabs and teasing are exactly what Alberto is going to miss the most about him once he is gone.
So what you'll laugh about when you stand over my grave and wish me well. God, I hope that's tomorrow. Oh, that was a good one.
The next morning, the brothers wake up early and hit the road. Outside their own motel, the two rangers have another quick conversation, with Alberto once again enduring a few playful remarks from the old lawman. The brothers drive out to meet with their family attorney. The lawyer delivers a stark warning. They absolutely must secure $40,000 by Thursday to pay off the predatory reverse mortgage on the ranch. Otherwise, the bank will legally foreclose on both the land and the family home. It becomes incredibly clear that the attorney is fully aware of the illegal nature of their activities and knows this money did not come from honest work. However, he has absolutely no intention of reporting them to the authorities and chooses to help the brothers anyway. He fully understands Toby's brilliant and ironic plan. They are going to pay off their mother's debt to the Texas Midland Bank using the exact same cash they stole from the bank's own branches. Tanner curiously asks the lawyer why he is risking his career to help them. The attorney explains that he witnessed firsthand how the bank preyed upon their vulnerable mother. He points out that the bank intentionally loaned her the absolute bare minimum, just enough cash to keep her trapped in poverty, while ensuring a guaranteed financial return for themselves. They fully expected her to default, so they could easily swipe her entire land for a measly $25,000, completely cutting her out of the massive oil reserves that have since been discovered beneath the ranch's soil. Toby's entire motivation is to pay off every cent of the debt, reclaim the ranch entirely, and legally secure it so it can be passed down as a permanent inheritance for his sons. To ensure his tracks are completely erased, the lawyer recommends that Toby appoint the Midland Bank itself to manage the trust fund for his children, effectively forcing the bank to protect the asset. Meanwhile, Marcus devises a plan to stake out a specific branch of the Texas Midland Bank, confident that they can catch the outlaws red-handed if they wait long enough. They decide to grab a bite to eat at a nearby diner, where an intimidating elderly waitress bluntly asks them what they don't want, sharply explaining that they only serve 2 types of steak and nothing else.
So what don't you want?
Pardon?
What don't you want? You know, I've been working here for 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but T-bone steak and a baked potato. Except this one from New York tried to order trout back in 1987. We don't sell no goddamn trout. So either you don't want the corn on the cob, or you don't want the green beans. So what don't you want?
I don't want green beans.
I don't want green beans either.
Cooked medium rare.
Can I get my steak cooked just
That wasn't no question. Iced tea for you boys.
Iced tea be great.
Iced tea, yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Well, tell you one thing. Toby's gonna rob this son of a bitch.
On the other side of town, the brothers purchase yet another cheap, old used vehicle to use for what is intended to be their final bank robbery. With the final preparations underway, Toby takes a moment to make a solo visit to his estranged ex-wife and his 2 sons. He pulls his eldest son, James, aside for a serious talk. He tells him about the valuable land that will soon belong to them and explains that they will never have to worry about poverty again, thanks to the massive oil reserves waiting to be drilled on the property. Toby openly admits to his son that all the gossip around town about his dad and Uncle Tanner robbing those banks is actually true. He then earnestly begs his son never to follow in their footsteps. Meanwhile, the 2 rangers continue their grueling stakeout across from the bank. Alberto reflects deeply on history, noting how his ancestral people used to own all the vast lands of West Texas until the white settlers came and took it by force. And now, ironically, the banks are taking it all away from the white settlers in the exact same way. Later that evening, the brothers take a moment to rest back at their ranch. They share a rare, heartfelt conversation about their lives and their bond, which beautifully dissolves into playful, brotherly wrestling on the grass. As night begins to fall, Alberto decides to head back to their room to get some sleep, leaving Marcus sitting alone in the dark, patiently keeping watch outside. When morning comes, the brothers prepare for their final play. They plan to hit 2 separate branches of the Midland Bank in one day, which will successfully net them the final amount of cash required. Wearing their masks and wielding their handguns, they pull up to the first branch, only to be deeply disappointed to find that the building is completely closed. With time running out, they have no choice but to head straight toward their final target. However, while they are en route, Tanner makes a sudden executive decision to divert to a much larger bank branch in a completely different city, arguing that the vault there will hold far more cash and guarantee they hit their financial goal. Though Toby is highly hesitant and deeply worried about deviating from the plan, he is ultimately forced to agree because they are completely out of options. He abandons his current car on the side of the road so they can consolidate into a single vehicle for the hit. Meanwhile, back at the stakeout, the 2 rangers analyze the grid. Realizing that one of the smaller branches is closed, they successfully deduce that the suspects will naturally target the larger regional bank next. Without wasting a second, they jump into their cruiser and speed toward the location. The moment the brothers burst into the crowded regional bank, they immediately brandish their weapons and order every single customer and employee to hit the floor.
Everybody get on the ground! Get on the ground! Now! Tell her to stand up! Open the drawers!
Unbeknownst to the thieves, a brave female customer manages to secretly text her father from the floor, alerting him to the active robbery and begging for immediate help.
Hey! Get out!
The brothers successfully secure the cash bag and exit the building, but they are instantly ambushed by a hail of gunfire from the girl's father, who has arrived armed to the teeth alongside a group of heavily weaponized local citizens. Despite the chaos and flying bullets, the brothers manage to dive into their getaway car and speed away, but the armed locals immediately jump into their own trucks and give chase. While speeding toward the area, Marcus and Alberto receive a chaotic radio dispatch about the active shootout. Marcus lets out a cheer, thrilled that his lawman instincts prove to be entirely correct.
Ah! What'd I tell you? Give me an Indian whoop. Come on.
Meanwhile, as the high-speed chase rages on, Tanner looks over and realizes that Toby has been shot in the abdomen. He quickly assesses the wound and notes that the bullet missed his vital organs, meaning Toby has a strong chance of survival if they move fast. Tanner abruptly slams on the brakes, steps out of the car, and unleashes a devastating barrage of gunfire from his automatic rifle toward their pursuers, successfully forcing the local vigilantes to retreat and abandon the chase. The brothers continue driving until they finally make it back to the spot where Toby left his personal vehicle. Tanner hands every single dollar of the stolen cash over to Toby, ordering him to leave immediately and finish the plan. Toby suddenly realizes that his older brother is planning to draw all the heat and sacrifice his own life to save him. Knowing this is likely the last time they will ever see each other alive, the brothers share a deeply emotional embrace and profess their love for one another. Tanner takes off down the main highway to intentionally draw the massive police presence toward himself, while Toby quietly slips away down a deserted side road. Tanner leads a fleet of police cruisers on a wild chase up into the rocky desert hills. When he reaches a high ridge, he douses his getaway car in gasoline, sets it ablaze, and watches it explode across the road, completely blocking the path of the police. He then scrambles up a steep hill and sets up a high-powered sniper rifle, preparing to hold off the entire army of lawmen single-handedly. Marcus arrives at the scene and realizes that only one gunman is firing down from the ridge. He incorrectly assumes that Toby must have been killed by the armed locals during the earlier shootout at the bank.
Well, if they did, they got the smart one. This old boy's out of his mind. Slip up this canyon and tomahawk that son of a bitch. Ranger down, pull it in. Get back! Get back! Back him up! All right, he's hid up in that brush on that hill. Can you get me up there behind him?
That's gonna be a 500-yard shot if he's where you said.
Just get me there!
Meanwhile, Toby encounters a strict police checkpoint on his escape route. A state trooper approaches his window, carefully questioning him about where he is coming from and where he is heading. Suppressing his intense panic, Toby calmly explains that the main highway behind him was completely blocked off by a fire. When the officer asks to see his identification, Toby hands it over without hesitation. Despite the officer's natural suspicion, the police have absolutely no legal grounds to detain him, especially since Toby's record is completely spotless. Unlike his notorious brother, Toby is ultimately cleared and allowed to drive away safely. The moment he is out of sight, he pulls over to desperately clean and dress his bleeding gunshot wound. Back at the ridge, Marcus manages to circle around the high cliffs and spots Tanner's exact firing position, where the outlaw is still actively pinning down the police force below. Marcus takes a steady sniper rifle from a local nearby. The moment Tanner pauses his gunfire to look around, Marcus pulls the trigger, killing him instantly. Later, Toby walks into an Indian casino to lay low. While standing near the bar, he watches a breaking news broadcast on the television announcing the death of his brother, and the report explicitly names Marcus Hamilton as the ranger who took him down. The following morning, a stoic Toby walks directly into the main headquarters of the Texas Midland Bank to completely pay off the entire predatory debt on the family ranch. The bank manager informs him that he will forward all the release documents directly to Toby's attorney, but Toby firmly insists that the manager process everything right then and there, wanting to see the proof with his own eyes. Before walking out the door, Toby follows his lawyer's advice exactly and requests that the Midland Bank officially manage the family trust fund for his children, ensuring the money is legally untouchable. Several weeks pass. Marcus, now officially retired, visits his old ranger station to chat with the officer who took over his position. He asks to review the closed case files regarding the Howard brothers. The case is officially shut because the department believes Tanner was the sole mastermind and lone actor behind all the robberies. Toby is completely in the clear because there is absolutely no direct evidence linking him to the crimes, and his clean record shielded him from suspicion. Furthermore, not a single eyewitness could identify him. The Rangers had even gone back to question the diner waitress, but because Marcus had previously confiscated her $200 tip, she deliberately lied to the investigators and claimed Toby was definitely not the man she spoke with. The department is completely convinced of Toby's innocence, especially after discovering that his ranch's new oil drilling operation is already making millions of dollars. They reason that since the Texas Midland Bank itself manages his massive trust, there is no logical reason why Toby would ever risk robbing them. The new lead ranger firmly tells Marcus that Toby is not a suspect, gently advising the old lawman to drop the case and reminding him that he is a retired civilian now. Despite the warnings, Marcus refuses to let the case go. He cannot forgive the men responsible for the shootout that killed his partner, and he remains deeply determined to bring the final criminal to justice. In the film's final moments, Marcus drives out to the family ranch, where he finds Toby standing nearby on the property. Toby greets the retired lawman immediately, holding a loaded shotgun firmly by his side. Despite the heavy, thick tension vibrating between them, Toby calmly invites the veteran lawman to take a seat on the porch and even offers him an ice-cold beer. Marcus looks him dead in the eye and openly states that he knows Toby was the true mastermind behind everything, arguing that the entire operation was far too brilliant and calculated to have been designed by the wild and reckless Tanner. Looking around at the booming oil wells on the property, Marcus asks Toby why they ever felt the need to rob those banks in the first place, actions that ultimately resulted in the deaths of 4 people, including his partner Alberto, who left behind a large, grieving family. Toby looks back at Marcus and passionately explains how his entire family line has suffered under the crushing weight of poverty for generations, describing it as a hereditary disease passed down from father to son. He declares that the cycle ends with him because he refused to let his own children endure that kind of misery.
Not anymore. This is theirs now.
I ain't never killed no one in my life, but if you want me to start with you, let's get on with it, old man. See if you can grab that pistol before I blast you off this porch.
Just as the argument between the two men begins to boil over into violence, a car pulls up. Toby's ex-wife and his 2 sons step out to visit the ranch. The 2 men instantly calm their posture and pretend to be old friends to keep the family safe.
The things we do for our kids, huh?
Before Marcus walks back to his truck to leave the property, Toby stops him and quietly mentions that he is more than ready to meet up again soon to finish their conversation and bring their story to whatever conclusion it deserves.
Oh, I'd like that.
Ready to be done with this.
You'll never be done with it no matter what. It's gonna haunt you, son, for the rest of your days. It's gonna haunt me too.
If you stop by, maybe I'll give you peace.
Maybe. Maybe I'll give it to you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more movies coming your way.